Hello, so this is a very spontaneous video, and it's about Brexit. You'll notice I don't often make videos on Brexit, and the reason being is that I think it's already very widely covered, so I don't know what new angle I can take. I also personally am tired of hearing about it, although of course it's a very important subject. I don't dispute that for a second, but I don't like thinking about it because it is really dividing this country, in my opinion. And it's dividing political parties, it's dividing families to some extent, and I just want all of this to be over as soon as possible, one way or the other. But it's come to a point where I can't leave this to the side any longer, and I do want to speak a little bit about it. Like I say, this is a spontaneous video, it's not going to be very long. But I've just read a shocking report in the Eye. I'm just looking at it right now. Apparently, the 11 Conservative MPs who voted against the government and they voted for an amendment on the final Brexit deal, have been receiving death threats. Death threats. And I find that abhorrent. And I see no reason to believe that this is exaggerated. I have personally seen um, some of the toxic comments online from hard leavers saying things that really are abhorrent. Now, to be clear here, I don't believe that all leavers are narrow minded, racist little Englanders. Far from it. Far from it. But I do believe there is a particularly ugly aspect to the Leave side that moderate Leavers need to start reining in on. I mean, for goodness sake, people are acting like France and Germany and other European countries are our enemies. Like we're living in the 19th century. Um, let's be clear here. When we had that referendum last year, it was a victory for the Leave side, granted. But what activists on the Remain side are pushing for here is just to have a voice at the very least. And what I really, really take issue with hardcore leavers is they're basically saying, we won, so you need to shut up. And I think that is utterly obnoxious. Democracy has never been about the winning side takes all. The winning side gets to just have the entire narrative and then the other side has to shut up. That's never been the case. Um, the point about that referendum last year, it was a simple question: do you want to stay in the EU or leave? Now, what campaigners are pushing for, yes, are people who are wanting a total reversal, and I'm not so sure that's the best way forward. I'm undecided about that. But I do believe that those of us who voted to remain have a right to raise concerns. I do believe that questions should be raised. Now, the fact that these 11 MPs are facing death threats for standing up for their conviction is utterly disgusting. And that nasty little rag, the Daily Mail, if anything happens to any of these MPs, as far as I'm concerned, the Daily Mail has blood on its hands. Paul Dacre will have blood on his hands. I think he's a disgusting little creep anyway, because I think he represents everything that is toxic about the tabloid press. But they had a headline. Basically, it was like a Wild West style poster calling those MPs. It said, "Have you no shame?" Now, I'm pleased to say that one of the Remain campaign groups altered this, thanking them for standing up for their conviction. But to actually vilify public figures, here's the thing. Those who say, oh, it's up to them to represent the will of the people. Yes, that was a majority. But what about the 16 million of us who had a different point of view? Are our rights suddenly put to the side? I mean, MPs have a responsibility to represent their constituents. Constituents are varied, right? So those who are saying they need to only represent the 17 million people who voted leave, actually, their responsibility is also to represent those of us who voted remain. Yes, they should respect the winning vote, but simply asking questions and voting with your conscience shouldn't attract death threats. That's utterly disgusting. Paul Dacre, shame on you. Shame on you, you despicable little creep. I mean, it really makes me angry that the Daily Mail thinks it has a right to vilify these politicians for no other reason than voting with their conscience. Um, People could disagree with them, but this thing about death threats, it's not trivial. Bear in mind what happened to Joe Cox last year. People will say that's overblown. I don't think so. I think there is a palpable threat out there. I think there are people who hate the EU so much that they would be prepared to use violence. And it's I urge reasonable Leave people to rein in on these extremists. I know they're only a minority. I do believe that they're a minority, but they're a very vocal minority. And, I want to see some condemnation from the likes of Farage and others. Theresa May has said it's unacceptable. Um, she, of course, herself voted Remain. Um, but I do feel she's been pandering too much to hard Brexiteers. I mean, to be fair, she's probably got the most complex job of any Prime Minister since the war. I don't envy the position she's in, but she knew that when she ran for leader. But, I mean, to actually threaten death, to threaten female MPs with rape, it's disgusting. I know that political decisions impact lives, and I've no problem with people feeling angry at political decisions. I've no problem with people being angry with politicians. But there are certain red lines you do not cross. Issuing death threats, issuing rape threats. That what sort of person are you if you're doing that? And it's right that police are investigating this because I do believe some of these things might be credible. I think most of the people who are making these threats are probably cards. They're trying to be tough online, and they probably wouldn't go through with it. But the very fact that they would make those threats in the first place is despicable. So I'm getting a little bit sick and tired of the arrogance of some on the Leave side. Yes, I know there is arrogance on the Remain side as well. And as a Remainer, by the way, I will say this, as a Remainer, I'm yet to see a single positive thing come out of Brexit. If if we get some more control in the long run on issues like setting our own laws, on immigration controls and things like that, that's good. I will welcome that. I love my country and I want the best for this country. But I struggle to see a single positive thing coming out of Brexit so far. I really do. All I see it causing so far is division and vitriol. And I am concerned about what it's doing to the social fabric in this country. Um, Now, there are certain people in the European Union and who are on the other side, who are on the Remain side, who really don't help. Martin Schulz, for example, um, calling for a United States of Europe. I say to any of my fellow Remainers who believe in that, it's a delusional idea. It will never happen. Nick Clegg made that point, though. He said that, years ago, the likes of Nigel Farage were warning about this. Well, it hasn't happened yet. It's a bit like those zealous pro gun Americans who warned Obama will take away your guns. This is the way I see it. There are certain Europeans, like Martin Schulz and others, who do believe in a federal single European entity. I am dead set against that. I believe in sovereign rights, and I believe it's an unthinkable, unworkable idea because where would be the capital of a European single state? Where would be, it will never happen. So I think it's a bit of a distraction. I've seen Leavers kind of hold that up to say, oh, well, this is why the European Union is evil. But the point is that doesn't represent all Europeans. It doesn't represent all of those either in the Commission or in Europe, the European Union, I should say, or on the Remain side. That's not my view, and that's not the view of many people who voted Remain. I didn't vote Remain because I want some sort of United States of Europe. I voted Remain because I looked at both options. I thought it through very carefully, and I believed it was a better option. And I still believe I made the right choice. And I appreciate there will be people watching this who disagree with me. But I'm getting a little bit sick and tired of this mentality. You're with us or you're against us. And if you voted Remain, you're a traitor. I will absolutely fight against that sort of nonsense. Um, and it's disgraceful that parliamentarians are actually being vilified and threatened because they voted Remain. We're democracy. We are not a country whereby it's you're with us or you're against us on something like this. There are certain things I do believe that the question of treason can come into hand if someone is actively working for a hostile foreign state. I mean, I would suggest what the SNP, certain SNP people are doing, appearing on Russia Today. I would argue that is borderline treason. But treason is not a word that should be used lightly. And accusing pro-Remain MPs of being treasonous to Britain, does that mean that every MP who's been pro-EU for the last 40 years were traitors? People who were elected by the people, by the way, in general elections. So there is an ugly side to this, and it concerns me. Shame, 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 shame on the Daily Mail. And it just showed what a nasty little rag it really is by that horrible cover that they had the other day. Shame on Paul Dacre and shame on that nasty little rag. And I am not saying that there can, that the Leave side don't have legitimate concerns about the EU. I have concerns about the EU. There's things I dislike about the EU, but I don't like the traction this is going down, which is you're with us or you're against us. It's bullshit. I really take issue with that.